This meeting is now open. It's October 17, 2017. If we could all stand and pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. On tonight's agenda, it's not that long an agenda. The board has three public discussions. We actually have a hearing, public hearing on a new alcohol license. We have an executive summary that's going to be brought forward for 3 Milford Street, also known to many people as the Holy Angels property. We have an executive summary from the Town Manager Act Review Committee. Then we will go into the Town Manager's report. We have a number of appointments to make that are before us for DPW, Disability Commission, and Historical Commission. And we will also be discussing a time set for the tax classification hearing, which is tentatively at this time, November 16th. Then the board will be going in executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Exception 2, to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel. It is the intent of the board that we will not reconvene in open session. We will adjourn from executive session with no further business being taken. So at this time, we have before us minutes for the board to review and make motion of October 3rd, both regular and executive session. Are we prepared to make motion on those minutes?
Sure.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept October 3rd's executive and regular session minutes as written.
Second the motion.
Net unanimous action of the board. Okay, it says 6:05, so before that, I would ask, as town manager, are you prepared to give us an update on your report while we wait for the first hearing?
Sure.
Please.
So I'm sad to report, as of last Wednesday, we were informed by Vincent Roy, who's our DPW director, that he's resigning to take another position elsewhere in a neighboring community. So that being said, we're already advertising for this position. Again, we're heading into winter. We have a number of projects, DPW projects, like the TIP project, that are already started. So we need to fill this very important position as soon as possible. We're sad to see Vincent go, but we wanted to thank him publicly for all the work he's done over the years for the town government. Moving on, as of yesterday afternoon, there's a number of properties here in town that are on the Chapter 61A status, and so it came to light that some of these weren't being managed as appropriately as we should. So as of yesterday, working with council, we've developed a checklist so that any new applications for properties that want to come out of Chapter 161 status have to go through a certain rigorous test to ensure that before they come to the board, they've met all those requirements.
Could I ask you to explain to the audience what 61A is? It's agricultural, but please.
Sure. So Chapter 61A allows landowners to put their properties into a certain tax-exempt status, so they don't have to pay the full value of the assessed value of that property. So it allows individuals to kind of save money over a period of time, but once they want to take that money out, they have to pay those taxes to the town in order to either convert it to a new use or to sell the property. So it's very common in Massachusetts to have properties in Chapter 61A, but again, so we just instituted a new policy on how we're going to manage those properties. On another note, we were informed by our counsel, KP Law, that they are going to be moving their hourly rate from $170 to $180 per hour. Keep in mind though, although that sounds like a high number as far as legal counsel, they haven't changed their hourly rate since 2010, so almost 7 years since they've done that. So we appreciate the fact that they understand the financial pressures that we're under and have held off on doing that. But as of this November, they're going to move it to $180. We have 2 grant opportunities that we're pursuing, and we talk a little bit about them later on in this evening's session. But we were approached by the Central Mass Region Planning Commission to partner with them on a planning grant through the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs. This planning grant will couple us with a couple other municipalities that will help us revisit the Village Center bylaw that was discussed about 1.5 years ago. This new bylaw, if we can move it forward through town meeting action, will really help us rethink our certain village centers like the downtown area and the West Upton area. So that's one grant opportunity that has come to us. And then we're also pursuing another grant opportunity. Again, I guess, taking a step back, when I applied for this position, I had gone through a series of questions. I had heard a lot about economic development and such a high tax rate. So I've made it a top priority myself to try to seek out opportunities to expand economic development opportunities. And so there's a grant opportunity through the Community Compact Cabinet that allow us to receive a grant through the state that will help us really think about an economic development plan for the town. It'll help us think about our village districts here in town, like I just discussed, and some of our priority development areas. So more to come on that, hoping to receive that grant as well.
I'm sorry to do this, but it's 6 o'clock, so
Sure.
by law, I have to open up the hearing. So it is now 6:05, and I'm opening a hearing, and I'd like to read, notice is hereby given under Chapter 138, Section 15A of the Mass General Laws that the public hearing will be held on Tuesday, October 17th at 6:05 PM at the Upton Town Hall, 1 Main Street, Upton, Mass. On the application of KB Holdings LLC, 25 William Street, Upton, Mass. for an all-alcohol license on the premises 118 Main Street. The premises is approximately 4,600 square feet of space within the building located at 118 Main Street, Upton. For clarification, it was originally opened in July 11th. The board did not take action at that time and postponed the hearing to this date. So we have the applicants before us, so I'd ask if you'd like to come up and please introduce yourself. Counsel and both parties, please. You might need to slide another chair over there. If you could please state your name also for the record, please.
Good evening. My name's David Bertinazi. I am here for KB Holdings LLC. With me are KB Holdings principals, Michael Merrigan and Lisa Merrigan. And the Merrigans, well, actually, KB Holdings is interested in obtaining a liquor license in connection with their efforts to open a restaurant business at 118 Main Street under the name of 118 Main Street Kitchen and Spirits. The goal is to have a full-service restaurant serving American fare. Initially they'll be serving dinner, and eventually they hope to also serve lunch. There is no plan at any point to serve breakfast. Both of the Merrigans have extensive experience in the restaurant industry. Mr. Merrigan was an executive chef for Back Bay Restaurant Group. He was the owner of Taylor's Restaurant in Munson, Massachusetts. He worked at the Northampton Brewery and Fitzwilly's Restaurant. Mrs. Merrigan holds a degree in hotel, restaurant, and travel administration. She worked in those businesses and also at Bennigan's. The building is located at 118 Main Street, obviously. It is the old pharmacy, and then it was Rebecca's restaurant after that. It's 4,600 square feet. At some point down the road, the Merrigans may seek to expand and build an exterior deck, but that will require various approvals and hoop jumping in order to do that. They've completed the site plan review process. They were approved for 21 parking spaces and an additional parking space. 21 total parking spaces, although one of them is only available with valet service, and that's subject to them for some easement rights to be finalized for 4 of those spaces. The intention is to engage Infinity Valet to provide valet services, so that that'll sort of minimize some of the traffic issues that have been experienced on the site. Staff won't be parking on site as a condition to employment.
Okay, I'd also like to read for the record, we have a memorandum from the Planning Board dated October 17th. Please be advised that at a Planning Board meeting on October 10th, 2017, the Planning Board voted unanimously 5-0 to approve with conditions the site plan approval application of Michael Merrigan. This application is for a restaurant with 22 associated parking spaces, one of which is a handicapped space. The site plan approval decision will be finalized and signed by our board at our next meeting. So you have gone through, and you were here previously, and we knew that the site approval was a requirement, so that has been finalized. At this time, I would, and thank you for your introduction, this time I would ask my colleagues, is there any questions you'd like to ask of the parties?
Just one question for you, sir. The blueprint provided has the outdoor seating. Is
I
that,
don't know which one.
Yes, right,
yeah,
so
so is this, are you asking for
It's on
that?
hold for now.
Okay. So
I
is
just,
that,
so we wanted everyone to know that in the future, that might be something that
is that
might be happening.
4,600 square feet? Does that include this area?
That does not include that.
Okay, that's my only question.
That would be an additional 405 square feet.
Okay. Any other question on this? Steve?
Have you ever had, or either one of you ever held a liquor license before?
Yes,
Yep, okay. And you're familiar with the tip certification?
Absolutely.
Service process?
Mhm.
Okay.
absolutely.
Ever any problems in the past with your license?
Never.
Very good.
That's it? Okay, I had a couple of questions. On the application, it didn't cite the experience, but you have stated. And you, Michael?
Yes,
Gerald is the one that will be holding the liquor license, or will be responsible for the license. Has he had experience in serving alcohol?
Gerald's
Michael
middle
Gerard
name.
Marion.
Gerard,
Now,
yeah.
that's why I got confused. I'm saying, who are these two people? I figured you had a
My alter
good,
ego.
I figured you had a good-looking brother or something. So you are the same individual. It just didn't cite on here beyond 2016 your experience level. So the only other question I have is you're asking for a license to go from 11:30 to 12 a.m. Can I ask why it's on the application at that late?
This has been such a long process. We're going on year 2 at this point, and so I think it's evolved, but I think originally we were looking at something that would include that, but we now are doing just the dinner hours, so
And
if we need
if,
to.
let's say, if there's a New Year's Eve, I don't know if that would have, if we'd have to apply for a special permit for that day to stay later.
Yeah.
But thinking it's just a typical license, most licenses go to 12 o'clock, and I don't expect to be there since our focus is the restaurant.
Right, and to be candid, my concern is first time we issue a license, we like to be a little tighter on the restriction to the timeline, and then, you know, we will be reviewing these in May when we come back for our annual review of licenses, and at that time, you could apply for an extended time period, that's more reasonable. I don't know what your timeline is to get started on this, but 12 o'clock is a little late to start. Could I ask, out of consideration, would 10, 10:30, something, or
I would think 11 would do it, because if we're open on Friday and Saturday nights, Thursday nights possibly, Monday and Tuesday, I'm planning to be home in bed probably by 9:30.
So, for correction, you would be asking to change from the form that was applied from 11:30 a.m. to 11 p.m.?
Sure.
Correct. Okay. That makes more amenable to us, yeah. Okay, and as you stated, you do have experience with licenses and so forth. That's very important. I've pretty much concluded, I've gone through your application, and aside from just looking at this, I've had time to ask questions. So it seems like everything is in order. I don't see a reason. We certainly don't want to obstruct businesses in this town. We want to encourage growth, and, you know, especially where you people are part of this community. So, do we have any further questions from the board?
No, sir.
I think one thing, just for the people in attendance that may not have access to this information, could you talk a little bit about the valet service, where the cars will be and how you'll handle that?
Sure, the valet service that we're using is currently in operation over at Alicante Restaurant in Mendon. So I think most people would be familiar with that. Professional service, one of the reasons that we went after a valet service is to utilize the parking area that we have, and so that they could actually manage the actual parking area, so that there won't be, you know, people coming and going, parking wherever they want. This way it'll be a structured operation, and like I said, we'll be able to manage it, to make sure that people aren't parking on someone's lawn or somewhere else, or neighbors, or anything to that effect, just to keep it more organized. And as I say, the big thing is the management of the parking area.
So all of the spaces that were approved by the planning board are sort of directly in the rear of that building, on the property. There are 4 other spaces that were approved by the planning board, subject to some easement rights being finalized. And that's been sort of an ongoing negotiation, but we're hopeful that the parties involved will be able to finalize those arrangements shortly.
Yes, it's the board's intent. We would waive to the planning board's authority on that. It's not our purview, so. Any further questions?
No.
Are there any questions from the general public that you'd like to approach? Yes, please state your name.
Bill McCormick, 112 Main Street. Is the valet parking mandated by either the planning board or the liquor license issuance?
It was not mandated by the planning board. The planning board provided, the planning board decision provides for X number of spaces with valet, X number of spaces without valet, so that if, for some reason, the valet guy got held up and didn't show up on one evening, the business wasn't closed.
Do you know what that number is without valet?
It is
21, I think,
21 with,
without valet, 22
Two.
with valet.
Correct.
Yes.
and one of them is a handicap.
Handicap. Any other questions?
So that's a yes, that is mandated to have
Well, the
valet parking.
planning
No.
board has approved, so it's
they-
not mandated, they applied for
I
it.
know that was in their approval, that they stated it must have
No,
valet parking. It's not.
it's not.
Oh, okay.
It's not in their
Yes.
approval. Their approval is that there are X number of spaces with valet and X number of spaces without valet, but it was not mandated that the valet be there, although that is the plan.
Yes.
So if for whatever reason the valet company falls apart, there's no valet parking, and parking becomes an issue, is it this board that's responsible
Planning
for
board.
management of that?
Planning board would control any parking on the premises. We are here to deal with the victual or the alcohol license. That's our only authority. The site plan approval is all under the planning board. And it was my understanding your original application applied with consideration for valet parking. And the planning board took that in consideration. I believe there were 3 hearings, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah.
Yes, so, yeah.
Okay, as long as that's in that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes?
Yeah, I'm Pamela Goodwin, I'm sort of a butter in public housing, but I just would like to make a statement that frequently I'm back in Franklin County and Northampton area, and I would encourage sidewalk dining. People love it, and it's rampant in Sheldon Falls in the Berkshires area. Everybody eats outside, sits outside on the benches, and Northampton is also in fact. So I just would, for my 2 cents, I think it's a wonderful idea to have outside dining.
And that was shown on the plan. Hopefully down the road, that's something that can happen, but in order to do that, it required another appearance with the zoning board, and maybe down the road, that would be something that we might.
To be clear, this board is only dealing with an alcohol license on the premises as it is now. And any further consideration we'd have to address later. Any other questions? There being none, I will close the hearing. I will ask the board, are you prepared to make motion on this action?
Yes, sir.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we issue a common vic license to KB Holdings of 118 Main Street until May 2018 with the time change from 11A to 11P.
All alcohol license.
All alcohol license, sir.
Thank you.
I second the motion.
With all alcohol license from 11:30 to 11 p.m., you are awarded the license. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck. The town wants to be a resource to help you, so
We appreciate
Good luck.
that. Thank you.
we'd like you to succeed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, congratulations. Good luck with it.
Congratulations.
I know, I recognize, I counted nails in your house for God's sake.
Oh, did you really?
The addition over the garage? Sweet Ramsey?
That's right.
Too much history.
You didn't get dragged to the cave, did you?
No, I didn't get that far. Thank you. Good luck.
There were many places over
Yeah.
there, used to live in East Hampton.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, next before the board, we have the 3 Milford Street Feasibility Committee study. I believe we have Mr. Brochu here to speak on behalf of the committee. Please.
Thank you, gentlemen. I believe you have in front of you an executive summary that was created by the chairman, Kevin Calreth, who apologizes she could not be here this evening, with input from the committee. First, I guess allow me on behalf of the committee to apologize that, due to circumstances beyond our control, we could not fulfill our mission, which was to provide this board with a feasibility study for the 3 Milford Street property that could be presented possibly at the special town meeting. Just in very broad strokes, the committee met and selected 2 firms to interview. We interviewed CBI Consulting and McKinley Caslow Associates, or MKA. After the interview, we chose CBI Consulting as the engineering firm that we would recommend to the Board of Selectmen that we use for the feasibility study for the 3 Milford Street property. This board awarded or approved that motion with respect to negotiating with CBI with respect to doing the work. Upon further work with CBI and working with them to sign the standard contract that the town of Upton uses, CBI was very hesitant and refused to sign the contract that Upton standardly uses with respect to the project. So we as a committee chose not to work with CBI Consultant. At that time, we went back to MKA to see if they were available to do the work. At this time, it was right around September, and unfortunately, they chose other work to do, so they could not, again, meet the deadline that we would like to see. The committee met and discussed the option about just presenting a structural engineering study on the property. It was voted by the committee that that would not be a recommendation because we felt as if that would not give this board nor the taxpayers in Upton the information they needed to properly make a decision on the 3 Milford Street property. So we felt as if it would be a waste of the town's money just to do a structural analysis. So we chose not to. So unfortunately, due to state procurement rules and the difficulty with respect to dealing with the firm that we had hoped to deal with, we were unfortunately, and again with our apologies, unable to meet our mission to provide this board with a feasibility study in the hope to present something at the special town meeting.
Okay, gentlemen, we are advised. Any comment?
No, Mr. Brochu kept us posted the whole way. I thank you and your committee for the effort.
No, we apologize. We tried, and again, it was just due to procurement rules and circumstances, we couldn't give the information needed.
Thank you. It is certainly the intent of this board, and it always has been, to try and find a methodology to address the situation of our downtown area. As many citizens know, your tax valuations are based upon the aesthetics of the town as well as schools and some other issues. And we feel there is room to upgrade. That building is part of that process. I'm going to ask the town manager if he would speak to something that's ongoing at this point, and maybe you can address where our forecasts are and where we are at this point to date on a multi-use plan
Sure.
for the center.
So, you know, I think, as you all know, there's major opportunities to revitalize the downtown area. You know, it's one of the first things that I've noticed. Selectman Mattelian and I, we walked that area prior to me beginning my job and kind of talking about major opportunities that we see that could happen down here. Quite frankly, in my personal opinion, the first piece of revitalization and revitalizing the downtown area is 3 Milford Street. I have had the opportunity to work with CMRPC. As recently as of yesterday, I invited them to come down and take images and pictures of what it looks like today. They said that they'll take that panoramic picture back, and what they want to do is create renderings of what that area could look like with this kind of this village district model of mixed-use space where you got commercial and retail and residential all along, you know, one parcel of land. So that is happening. CMRPC has already committed to helping us do that. My hope is that we can have these renderings in advance of town meeting. I think it's really important for town meeting members and the community at large to understand or at least see what the opportunity is. I think it's really easy to talk about it, but unless you can actually see it, again, pictures, you know, they have 1,000 words. And so I do believe that 3 Milford Street has a lot of value. Maybe not at the current structure as is. Maybe there's something we need to do with that space there where the parcel is. But that, quite frankly, I think is going to be the first piece in the revitalization project of downtown, which even I've talked to many planners who have all said that Upton has major opportunities, not just in the downtown area, but West Upton as well.
And if I may, through you, Mr. Chairman, the committee, again, would like to still continue, you know, with the feasibility study with respect to that property, but we understand that the memorandum of understanding that we currently have with the owner expires. So again, we don't, we take that into consideration, but the committee does feel as if it is important to produce to the town, options and possibilities, for that structure, because I think, again, not speaking on for the whole committee, but it would be, again, in conversations we've had, I believe that the entire committee feels as if that it is a vital structure, but we also feel as if it's also important that we inform the town as far as the best, options that the town could utilize that property or that building for.
One of our dilemmas is that we can have discussion, but we have to respect the privacy of individuals relative to people that own land and have holdings over there. And we have had discussion. I know that common question comes up. There are people, and it's quiet, and until they come before this board cannot state it's an action of the board. It can only be stated as such if we're in a meeting and we discuss it. But there has been discussion relative to the properties that are involved there. We can't get into specifics, but I know the town manager has been approached of interest, and there are other people. So to think that it's a dormant piece of property that has no value, you've heard the expression, it's near the stream, it's got this problem, it's got that. There are people that are very interested. So all it will do is serve to alleviate the tax base and do a lot for the town. As we all know, rental property is very limited in this town. If you have any children that grow up here, it's very unlikely they're going to find a place to live or rent through their younger years. So it's something that I think the town needs to address, and we are working on. So, but I would like to ask the board if they're in agreement to keep that committee in place and not to dissolve the committee based upon just that they haven't got to a finding at this point, but I think it's a valuable asset, and the members of the committee are well-versed on the situation.
Absolutely.
So,
It's a great committee to work with.
we in agreement? So
Okay.
your committee is still in place, and we'd appreciate whatever you can do in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the time. Okay, next we have members of the Town Manager Act Review Committee, and I see the chair is not here. Do we have a spokesman for the group? Mr. Holman, are you?
Vice Chair.
Okay,
And I'll invite the other committee members up.
okay. Please shut off your phones, though.
Yes, sir. Any other orders? Lieutenant Commander. Richard?
Thank you.
After we get through playing Billy Musical Chairs.
For the public record, could you state your name, please?
Yeah, my name is Alfred Holman, 48 Mechanic Street.
Debbie Morelli, 28 Marion Way.
Elizabeth Fournier, 31 Fisk Avenue.
Richard Desjardins, 36 Front Street.
Okay, the board has, and we want to thank the clerical staff, because I know she put in a little bit of time. For the record, this is the pile of paper. So you did an extensive amount of work, yes, and that should be appreciated. Thank you. The board and ourselves, we've had enough time, at least I'll speak for myself, had time to go through this and read through all this, and I think the proper process would be now, and I would ask if your committee is in agreement, that if there is question and dialogue, that this board have an opportunity to address the committee on some of the issues brought forward in the recommendation. So,
Right. I'd like to first say that through the history of the committee, we had some interesting dialogue and some interesting and verbose conversations, both sides of any issue. But the committee worked very hard, and every member of the committee contributed a tremendous amount to the conclusions we raised. And as a result, all the changes that we recommend were voted on unanimously. So,
great, thank you. Okay, Gary?
So actually, a lot less changes than I expected, but I read through everything. The only thing I just have a little curiosity about is the line 55, where it talks about the creation of a screening committee. Is that, do you guys still want us to try to reach out and use a search, private search firm too?
oh, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
That
But
was
you want to do it like how you searched for last time?
absolutely correct.
Right.
Absolutely correct.
That was, other than that,
that's why we made a
Everything's-
differentiation between search and screening.
Right, right.
other than that, everything's self-explanatory.
I think that was our goal, to make it simple, so we could all, so everybody could understand. And we put it in red thanks to our our recording secretary.
Right.
That made it easy. Any other questions?
Mr. Metellian?
That actually was one of my questions, and if you're comfortable with 5 years being a period of time to review the act again?
That's typical of most everything that we've signed. It's 5 years for review of salaries, and everything's tied to 5 years typically, so that's what we felt comfortable with.
That's it?
That's it?
Okay, I have a number, and some of these address the recommendations, which are in many cases as valuable, if not more, than some of the language changes.
We're talking about,
Yeah, some of your general recommendations, I'm sorry, I might be jumping around a little bit. The
okay.
context is the same. You recommend a org chart for the town. I think, that makes sense. I don't see a problem with being able to support that and post it on the town's website, so people have a diagram, if nothing else, that shows direction of where different departments are structured under different authorities.
if I may interject, it would be absolutely fantastic having an org chart on the town website, and also each one of these squares linked to the website or the location of that particular question. In other words, if you say, gee, I want to talk to the town manager, if you clicked on the town manager box, it would go to how to contact the town manager. That
So,
would be easy to do.
if I read that, you've just volunteered to work with.
No, I didn't volunteer to do that.
Well, it sounded
it's
that
pretty
way, and I
easy.
have to interpret it as
Dynamic.
that.
Well, I think you should be able to sign that to the technology committee.
Well, that is true, which we still have not got all the members in,
Are you
so.
volunteering for the technology committee?
On several occasions I have. So I
Okay,
don't
so,
know that.
but the org chart seems to make sense to me. The other one is clearing up the language to assure that people clearly understand the manager's role as a direct line to the Board of Selectmen. And because our form of government is a little different, I mean, if I had my way, the town manager would have a different authority structure, but we have elected boards and commissions, and it's difficult to ask town manager to manage under the authority of another elected board. So that one's kind of difficult. We could probably work some ways to make better accountability. The ADA requirement office, thank you for finding that. You found it, and that means a team of lawyers in Boston, when they read this, and the state, when they enacted it, didn't catch it, so good for you.
Which page are you on?
I'm jumping, I told you, I'm just going by
At the bottom, there's
facts.
a page number, so I can
Well,
keep track with your hop.
I'm saying if you know what you're talking about.
Okay,
All
I
right.
failed that test,
Okay.
Professor.
So, the other thing is, for the board to try and disseminate more information, and that's something we've frustrated with. We've tried a number of vehicles. I mean, we have pamphlets in town buildings and ask people for input. The citizens do have access. I jokingly said I got an email tonight from a citizen sitting here asking for a street light in front of their house. So people do know how to get in touch with us, BOS at upton.gov, so forth. And the other thing is, to have more open forums. We tried that when Selectman Picard was on. He had office hours, and he met for an hour before the Board of Selectmen's meeting every week, and after 6 weeks, he'd get up tired of sitting alone. So we'll try and continue that. Never give up, but it's an ongoing battle. So the Personnel Board requests to look at the bylaws. That's a very solid request. There's a lot of overlap that seems to be ambiguous and needs to be cleaned up, and that one I would definitely support. The evaluations, the town manager can be responsible for the town evaluations of the employees under the Board of Selectmen. There are other departments, and again, the town manager can request that they all get in as personnel coordinator through that process, but we would encourage the Personnel Board to work with the town manager to get that. Under hours, as it came up at the meeting, I checked, there was one individual, but that was due to a situation between the Board of Selectmen and that employee, and that's why it wasn't done, but we will make sure that's followed in. Again, Personnel Board, you make a recommendation that the determination within 10 working days in the Personnel Board's involvement in the disciplinary process needs to be looked at as well. That makes sense. See, I'm in agreement in all of this. The grievance process, I would like to, and I'll be transparent here, I was one of the ones that created this through a little plagiarism of other towns, but one of the things, the town wasn't really ready at that point to have the town manager take that much authority, and people were uncomfortable with it, but I think the town manager needs to have the authority to act. One of the problems we have is we can only act in meeting. So if there's a disciplinary issue that comes up that needs to be addressed immediately, all he can do is send the person home with pay until the board gets to approve his actions, or her actions, but in this case his. And I think maybe we could look at that at some point and maybe readdress another group to look into it and see how we could better bring that to town government. The problem is if we don't have some form of consensus going to meeting, it's more difficult to get it through. So I'm rambling a little, but I'm just hitting it all. Again, engage with employees, citizens. We're trying to do better with it. We had a department a couple of years ago or a year ago that had some problems. I personally spent a lot of time to meet with them, and I realized there's a big misunderstanding as to a lot of the processes and how they work. And it's difficult sometimes to expect people to know you're in this chair and you just assume. So I'm going to make it a commitment to myself to try and make things more transparent all the way through the channels. And if that means we have to write up another booklet or something for employees, they do get screened coming in when they're first hired, but let's face it, they're nervous, they're anxious, there's a lot going on. Maybe we should do it once a year and have some type of format where everybody gets asked questions and gets better educated. The other one, town manager restricting to elected employees, I don't have a problem with that. I think you did cover it. I think to restrict the Board of Selectmen from becoming town manager makes sense. But other elected boards, if we have somebody that's on the planning board that's very talented, yes, I don't think we should restrict them. That's my own opinion, so I'm in agreement with what you said. And then the screening committee, my only question was to assist, and that was the key word in your language, that allows, so if should a Board of Selectmen go out and get a recruiting firm, that the screening committee, much as we did in this one, and it worked very well to the point that the entire screening committee and the recruiting firm all independently acted and came to the same conclusion. So, and we got this fine gentleman here sitting with us now, so that worked. So, all I can say is I'm satisfied. It looks good. There is a considerable amount of work here. I see that. And I will say, and again, I speak openly. There was a lot of conflict. There was dialogue that got uncomfortable, but the end result is what comes out for the people of this town, and I think they've got something solid here. So, remember, what are the 4 stages of group dynamics, Mr. Holman?
It's too complex for me.
Forming, storming, norming, performing, and you stormed for quite a while, but you got through it, so, great.
I'd like to say that one of the things that became obvious to us when we reviewed it, there were a lot of things that that are referred in this document, the second one you went through, policy issues that really aren't an issue that goes to Boston, are really issues of policies that the Board of Selectmen and the town manager have to work through to be consistent so people understand, policies that you would establish, the board would establish. And also, the other thing that became obvious, as you said, was the inconsistencies between the Town Manager Act and the Personnel Bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we all know, the Personnel Bylaw is a living document that changes as time goes on, and this just has boiled it to the surface, a lot of things that are inconsistent. So a lot of things have been pushed off from here to the Personnel Board to review and act on. So I would suspect in the near future that there'll be a lot of changes to the Personnel Bylaw, which will be beneficial to the employees and the town.
I would recommend, as chair, I'd like to call some type of meeting in the near future with the Personnel Board and the Board of Selectmen to have dialogue as to this and any other issue that needs clarification within our bylaw, personnel bylaw. It needs to be addressed. To your point, it's a flowing document.
Right.
Sometimes we change A, but we don't change B, so.
To make it consistent with current laws and regulations, and also the current status of the town and the town operations. Makes perfect sense. So I don't think that's any big, exciting news that we need to do that. I would also say that this committee serves at the pleasure of the Board of Selectmen. If you want to keep us intact until after the town meeting, and this is discussed at the town meeting, if that's your pleasure, then I'm sure the committee will be happy to do that. I mean,
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the Q&A from the audience would be better addressed by the committee. You know, there are going to be questions in the audience, and I think it's beneficial that
Sure.
your committee be there to answer the questions,
fair,
correct?
yeah.
And explain how you came to
Sure.
whatever you came to. Yep, absolutely. So, Anything else before I get to the audience? Any questions? No?
Actually, I was just going to make a comment, which was, as you were saying about the personnel bylaws, much like the financial policies and procedures, which is something that was adopted recently, but was not really easy for people to get to it. But you can see how thorough that is. So much the way that document's put together, and it really defines the way Upton does business financially as we go forward, not only the Town Managers Act, but now if we take that personnel bylaw and bring that forward and really define it well as the financial procedure policy is defined, I think that'll be helpful. And then people, really, unless it's, they'd have to come forward to ask a specific question, but everything would be right there for people to unlock if they choose to.
Any questions from the audience? You had a question?
Yeah, I just want to make a statement. I'm Nate Fisher with the Personnel Board. So we are in process already, previous to receiving any information from the Town Manager Act and reviewing the bylaws. So that is one of the active items on our agenda.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Great. Any other questions from the audience? Well, thank you. You're still in place, so we can't thank you for serving because you're going to still be there. But thank you for this document, and we will work on the language for the town meeting and so forth.
Yeah, good job, folks.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I would now return back. I'm sorry I cut off the town manager before, but an open hearing requires us by law to, when it says 6:05, it's 6:05. So, please.
Sure, so I only have 4 more items, and these are quick items. Just wanted folks to know that the Public Works Department has installed 4 of the historic district signs around town in 4 different locations. So across from the street from the Fin and Feather, you will find one on the corner of North Main and River Street, one on the corner of Route 140 and Fisk Ave, and then one on School Street over by the fire department. So I've had a chance to go around and check them out. They're definitely very visible. They're a little small, so you have to kind of take a look out for them, make sure you can see them. But they look good. They look really good. The Board of Health has started vaccinating for this year's flu season. Today, they were at the senior center. The town's nurse was over at the senior center vaccinating those folks that are most vulnerable for this year's flu season. So we would encourage those individuals who are interested to come to the Board of Health office, get a free flu shot. They have pediatric and adult doses. Spoke to the treasurer collector this morning, and he did, in fact, schedule the tax title auction, which will be held on November 8th at 11 a.m. in this room, Little Town Hall. The Zikos Group will be conducting the auction, and they're going to help the town with a wide dissemination of public information and advertisements as well. And lastly, special thanks to Representative Meridian. He called the office about a week ago to let us know that he was able to get the House to veto the governor's, to override the governor's veto of the $27,000 that he had placed as an earmark specifically for public safety for the town of Upton. Because of the override, that's going to move on to the Senate, and hopefully it gets passed to the Senate, and those dollars would come this way to the town. So we appreciate the representative's tenacity in keeping this funding alive. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we have before us some appointments for consideration. We have an appointment to the DPW as a laborer and a heavy equipment operator. And Derek, I'll turn this over to you. There was interviews were conducted with personnel board members and a panel, and the conclusions are these 2 candidates. So is there anything you want to add to this at this time?
Not a lot to add. Michael Cohen has been working with the town as a part-time seasonal employee. Was interviewed by members from the personnel board, Sandy, and the DPW director, and received unanimous endorsement. The same goes true for Mr. Neil Gallagher, who'd come on as the heavy equipment operator as well. Again, interviewed by the same panel, and also received unanimous support from the group.
Okay, is there any question? Gary?
No, sir.
Steve?
None.
Gary, motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we appoint Michael Cohen as the the DBW cemetery labor effective October 23rd, 2017, and waive the 15 days.
Second the motion.
That's unanimous action.
Ready for the next one?
Yeah, please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to appoint Neil Gallagher as a heavy equipment operator effective October 23rd, 2017, and waive the 15 days.
Second the motion.
That's unanimous action. Okay, we also have a request for the Disability Commission, 2 members to be appointed. This went through the same process with the Director of Elder Affairs and Services, and these individuals are Chris Scott, who most people in Upton will know is a dedicated volunteer, served so many years on the Conservation Commission, and Paula Lepore, who has also served within the Elder Services community with Meals on Wheels and other things. So are there any questions relative to these applicants?
Yes, sir.
None.
Okay, I'd accept the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to appoint Christine Scott and Paula LaPierre to the Disability Commission effect until May 2018.
Second the motion.
That's unanimous action. And we have one more request for appointment, and that's for the Historical Commission, Ms. Barbara Burke, and I think everybody knows who that lady is. Is there any question?
None.
No brainer.
No brainer. Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to appoint Barbara Burke to the Historic Commission until May 2018.
Second the motion.
And that's unanimous action, and Barbara is probably one of the best historians in our town. She served on the Historical Commission, I'll lean to Mr. Desjardins, what would you say, 35, 40 years maybe? And for personal reasons, she took some time off, but she's back and a great asset to the town. Welcome back, Barbara. So next before us is a motion or a consideration to set a motion for the tax classification hearing. Could I ask, has the town accountant, not the accountant, the Board of Assessors been consulted and treasurer collector, they're all in agreement on this?
All three, the town accountant, the Board of Assessors, and the treasurer collector have all agreed that November 16th will work.
Okay. We in agreement?
Yes.
Just for clarification, so people understand, it's required by law that the tax rate gets set. The Board of Assessors come to us with the treasurer collector. The classification is to determine what class of taxation. Presently, Upton has only one class of taxation. Roughly 97% of our population is residential. So we stay residential. We do not set another classification rate for commercial or retail or any other classification. That is our primary objective. We are not setting the tax rate at this meeting. We are setting the classification. The tax rate is a process that's done through the assessor's office, through the state of Massachusetts, through the treasurer collector's office. And primarily, the number one reason for your tax bill is the citizens at large who go to a town meeting annually and vote their taxes. What they spend is what determines what your tax bill will be. The only other overriding to that is a reassessment, and for some public dissemination, I don't have the numbers, but there has been reassessment this year and property values have gone up. And the property value goes up regardless of what the tax rate is. Your property is worth more, you will be taxed more. It's just the way the system works. Sorry. So that's kind of a quick overview. So I would ask for a motion to accept November 16th, to set November 16th as tax classification hearing date.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we set a tax classification hearing November 16th, 2017.
Second the motion.
That's unanimous action of the board. We'll set the time and it will be publicly disseminated. Now we have, is there anything that the board wants to discuss prior to going in executive session? Gary?
No, sir.
No.
No?
I
Yes.
just have one question. Did you want to set a date to review the warrant?
Yes, what's our next meeting scheduled?
24, next Tuesday is the planning board. Yeah, outside of that,
The board is, your next meeting would not be till
No,
November
I know
7th.
that, yeah.
right, so we have to post, we have to have the
By the
board
20
sign it by the 27th,
27th.
so it can be posted.
So, gentlemen, next Tuesday?
Do you want to do it on the 16th, the same day as the classification?
No, we can't, it's too late.
Warrant.
We have to
This
do
is
it
for the warrant.
Oh,
for the
I'm sorry.
warrant. Can you do Tuesday?
Yes, sir.
Can you do next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday, yes, I think I can.
Can we do like 6 o'clock? That work for
Yeah,
everybody?
I think that's fine.
Okay, and the purpose is we have to accept the warrant and motion, sign the warrant for the special town meeting. And we have a time frame that we have to comply with by law, and that's what the town manager is asking. So the board will meet next Tuesday at 6 PM for primary purpose. October primary purpose for the meeting will be to review the special town meeting warrant, approve, and then it will get posted, and action will take place from there. Anything else?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, actually, a few weeks, we've had some ongoing talk about the Fire Advisory Committee. I think we haven't, do we have any feeling for that? I know whether we do have somebody that stepped forward and wants to serve on it.
I can,
We have two.
yeah, we have two
names, and
applicants.
actually,
Two names.
Jim Hill and Doug Cook put their names in, so.
So we have two applications so far. Right now, we have only one vacancy. So we'll have to consider, I assume at our next meeting, all the applicants. I think we've only really advertised it for a couple of weeks now, so we thought we'd hold it open for an additional couple more weeks, so that all interested parties could apply within a reasonable period of time.
Okay.
And for clarification, we had talked, I'm going to say last spring, about setting up a committee to review the advisory board and its actions and policies, and candidly, that never took place. So we have it in place by bylaw, and we need to stay consistent to bylaw. So we have 3 openings, we have 2 applications at this point. To town manager's point, within 2 weeks, we will take action on that, hopefully to fill that committee and get it reactive again with the membership that's come forward. And it is part of the the restructure of our fire department, where we went from Board of Engineers to G and other factors, so. Okay, anything else?
Nothing else.
General public, are there any questions, comments? Yes?
Hi. Lynn Hagerty, 10 South Milton. I just wanted to ask a question about, you're building the Disability Commission. You have the Disabilities Coordinator and the members that you appointed tonight. Are you building the commission, the 5-member committee? I was just trying to understand.
We're appointing the members to the committee, yes.
You're
We had
appointing.
openings, it's still in place,
Okay.
it's not.
I just hadn't
Openings.
seen
We had
that.
two.
We,
We
what?
had 2 vacancies.
We had 2 and they're filled, right, yeah.
You had 2 vacancies and they're filled?
Yes,
So you have a 5-member,
That's right.
okay.
and they work in conjunction with the elder services because the
Okay.
nature of that service they
I
provide.
just hadn't seen that you were asking for members, that's all. So I just had a question. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right,
Thanks.
any other questions? Hearing none, the board will go in executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, Exception 2, to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel. We will reconvene only for purposes of adjournment. Thank you very much.